welcome to Pisgah Monster Cross. This is a race in the mountains of North Carolina, and we start off under this little gate. Sierra and I on the left there, I just passed, are doing a few gravel races this year as part of our little off-road season. And already I'm starting off quite high here, trying to get to the front. I know it starts off, oh, you see 8 over there to the right, Cross Superstar. Get over here past Alex and Eric, but we're doing a little off-road, off-season situation presented by the Black Bibs and Team Winston-Salem. So we're rocking these salmon, I believe is the official term, colored jerseys from the Black Bibs, and also some Black Bibs from the Black Bibs. And we're doing a few off-road races. So starting off here in Pisgah Monster Cross, I actually forgot to get the map routed before the start here, so had to figure that out while we were on the move. And I guess there's a few hundred people in this race, which was pretty huge, but a lot of these gravel roads were pretty chunky, and I had 40mm tires on, which is going to be a theme later on the road sections. It was great, but when we started off, there was Cypress Corey and Carson Beckett there with full-blown mountain bikes, 120 travel mountain bikes with mountain bike tires, and that was kind of worrying because they've done these roads and trails many times, and so I would imagine they were adequately prepared. Starting off up this little road, it's like a 10-minute, 15-minute climb, and guys were going pretty hard, but I was kind of trying to get to the front so I wouldn't get lost on the descent as far as getting out-descended by guys on mountain bikes. So getting as far forward as I possibly can. And let's see, on the right there, I think his name's Jack with Ferocious Sport. Caught up to Thomas Turner there on the left. And yeah, it's kind of like a double track, like an off-road, a Jeep trail. I guess a double track is the best, like a ATV trail. And you have to take some choice lines just because there's some rutting out happening and some deeper gravel over in those tracks there. But I was trying to move up the best I could behind, I think that's a Lars there. Everybody's got big tires on their mountain bikes these days. And I had talked to Sierra, and before the hurricane, these roads were a little less torn up, but now they are actually pretty rugged roads. So hurricane did a lot of damage up here in the mountains of North Carolina. If you can, I'll put a little link to somewhere you can donate to the hurricane effort. Back to the race, I'm attacking. And I'm not sure if this is a great idea or not, because it's so early in the race. We're 4 miles into a 74-mile race. Up this hill, I kind of knew what was coming, and there's a few more uphills, but I also knew that on my 40mm tires compared to guys on mountain bike tires, it wasn't going to be great for me. So I wanted to get as much space as possible on these downhills just because they were going to catch me. And I had better rolling resistance on a lot of the spots, especially the road spots, so I'm trying to get away from everybody I possibly can, and I am sending this descent quite hard. So taking some risks that maybe weren't super necessary 4 miles into a 70-ish mile race, but I felt like they were kind of necessary. It's a pretty chunky road, and I kind of wanted to see stuff before I hit it. I have a big gear on this bike. Eventually got caught and passed by those mountain bikers, and I dropped my chain. The big gear, big 50-tooth ring usually keeps stuff on, but this time it was bouncing around. I'm not sure if my clutch derailleur is starting to wear out, and it's just bouncing off. The chain was bouncing off the chain ring too much, but it finishes up the single track here. You can see Steven there putting a foot out, having to stop when the guy in front of him, I think that's Bob. Oh no, it is not. Might be Zeb. The guy in, I think Bob bobbled, or maybe Zeb did, and slowed up Steven, and he had to put a foot out. But now I'm catching back up to these two guys, and both Carson and Cypress are off the front at this point. They had a much faster descent than anybody else. I dropped my chain, so they were gone. But I had that attack, and it really split up the field. So once that happened and everybody was split up, kind of going into this descent portion, I was off the back-ish. Had to catch up to these guys before that single track, and now we are descending quite fast. Bob up there is shooting this descent pretty hard. I get past Zeb, trying to keep up with Bob, but he's got mountain bike tires on his gravel bike, and I'm gonna do the best I can to keep up with him, but he's just going around these corners. Like, he's got more traction than me, which, with tires that are probably 20 mil bigger than mine, he's got more traction than me. You're gonna see me come around a few of these corners and just lose the front there, which was quite worrying many times. And there's also a bunch of these little mud sections that on a cross bike I'm usually comfortable with, but for some reason with this gravel bike going 30 miles an hour was not super comfortable. We ended up catching those two guys at the bottom. I think Oakley was in front of Bob also, and caught back up to them, and then eventually I got back on the front because this road section is perfect for my gear with a 40 millimeter tire. I got back on the front and pushed the pace, caught back up to Carson and Cypress here 13 miles in. Eventually it was a bunch of us together, so we've got Oakley there right in front of me. He's on fresh Allied bike, and I figured it was time to go. There's a big road climb coming up, so I just attacked him after a while. I turned my GoPro on and knew I had to wait after that little beep before attacking. So I gave it some time and then sent an attack once the road started to kick up a little more. Nobody really responded, but I just kind of maintained a gap. I was doing like probably 360 watts on most uphills. Eventually, Steven tried to catch back up on that. But there was a few gravel sections he just couldn't keep up with. Eventually, I'm off the front for a while, and there's this descent here called Medusa. It had a wild section. You could probably hear me say, "What is this?" And on these 40 mil tires, I was underbiked, absolutely underbiked, and the guys just on the mountain bikes just kept catching up to me, to the point where I would get like a 2-minute gap, I think, and then they would just blow through all of it once we got to these more technical gravel descents. And even the less technical gravel descents, I think they were descending way quicker than I was on those big bikes. So it was definitely a no one had the right bike kind of scenario. On the road sections, which there were a decent amount, I definitely had a good bike for it, and then everywhere else the mountain bikes seemed to be much quicker. So maybe a drop bar mountain bike would have been ideal, or like a gravel bike with mountain bike tires. I did this descent as fast as I could though, and you can see I was catching up to, I think, Alex on the moto there. We were having a blast. At the end of that little Medusa descent, he had like a little bobble and looked back at me and said, "Man, that was crazy." I was like, "Yeah, that is crazy." Anyway, we're going down this hill super hard. I've got many miles left to go, but I just kept 360 on the uphills and then tried to just keep the pace on the downhills. Eventually, on one of the last uphills, you can see it's a 66-mile race. 5 miles to go. I get caught by Oakley. He comes out of nowhere, bridges like a 2-minute gap, and he's got this nice Allied with the like Conti. It's not the Dubnatall, Race Kings, I think is what they used to be called. Big old tires on there. I'm trying to keep up with him, but you can see I'm doing like a good bit of power for the end of this race. I think I averaged like 300 watts for 4.5, 5 hours. It was a lot of watts, and for him to be catching up to me was pretty impressive, but he just like floats away from me. I'm not sure if it's the tires or he was just going that much faster. I started catching back up to him on the downhill, really risking it here, like sliding around all the corners, but just was not making a huge dent. Eventually I did catch real close up to him, and then I just had like some incidents, which we're gonna see. But I was racing down this downhill just as fast as I could go, like letting it slide a little. Yeah, you can see it. There's real chunky downhill. I was willing to risk getting a flat, just roll it in the best I can. You can see, man, it's just like super chunky. These roads are awesome, and this whole race was organized super well. You can see, ooh, right here, I actually lost the bars, and that was very scary. I caught myself with my elbow, which, yeah, that was super frightening, and I was like, man, I'm gonna need to take a step back here in a second. But I kept going as hard as I could down here, and I was catching up to him. I had him in sight. I figured, man, if we get to that end, I know there are barriers at the end, but right here, I went for another pedal stroke and dropped my chain for the second time. So just immediately tried to get it back on, come to a stop, get that chain back on. I don't think I lost a ton of time getting that chain back on, but I knew at this point, with 2 miles to go, all downhill, that much time loss was going to be nearly impossible to recoup. So I just pushed in as hard as I could to the finish, just in case he also had a similar incident. But continued down through that gravel descent and through the pavement to get second place behind Oakley. Finished up with a bunch of blood on my arm. Pretty gnarly, but this race was excellently organized. The guys did a great job. There were crossing guards and everything. Aid stations were great. Barriers at the finish. Very cool Monster Cross race through the mountains of North Carolina. Thanks for watching. See ya.